talked him out of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, we saw that, I guess.
any of that particular stuff in there that you stands out in your mind as far as what you did or where you were, or well, for example, the end of the thing when you
Well,
got
the main thing was after you broke through the Siegfried line. Now they put up a defense there.
Now this is before or after the Battle of the Bulge?
This was, well, we started in the Siegfried line prior to the Battle of the Bulge, but the Battle of the Bulge was their last grasp.
Yeah.
That was the last. They got together the armor that they could, and they thought that they could reach the river. I don't remember. I thought it was a Ruhr, but I guess it was a Meuse. River. They could have a defensive position, and they could capture enough fuel and what have you to operate. Their thought was that they would have a defensive, a place to set up a defense. But see, the main hub of this whole area was Bastogne. All the roads, it's in the hills in there. And all the roads and everything go through Bastogne.
Mm-hmm.
Or this is where the 101st Airborne was. And they wouldn't surrender. They fought them. And this was when the weather was so bad that they couldn't send in air support, and no one could get in there to them or help them. And so they were just hunkered down, and they're damned if they wouldn't. And they damned if they'd let them through there, and they didn't. They held. And then as soon as the weather broke, they could get airdrops to them for ammunition and food and medicines. Why, then that broke the back of the German attack.
Yeah.
Their idea was to get into here, fan out along the Meuse River, and establish a defensive position and start a drawback. Although they didn't have the wherewithal to maintain what they took. It was just a last dying grasp, a gasp to try to take it. But we were south of there. We were down around Luxembourg. But that's their penetration. Well, here, see, your Siegfried line was on the west side of the river, Rhine, down in here. This is where we were, and we were attacking in this area, the Siegfried line.
Now we're talking about this is before or after the bulge.
This was before.
Yeah. That's one thing I think John was saying about his father, I guess, getting captured. He escaped before they got him in prison. Said, and they lived in buildings, anything they could find to shelter, and ate whatever they could get their hands on, and got back, I guess, over at friendly lines. Wound up with losing a bunch of toes, frostbitten. So I took it from that it was a cold period of time.
Yeah, it was cold. Where was he shot down?
I don't know. Oh, he wasn't shot down. He was Army.
Oh,
Yeah. They were marching a handful of them off to wherever they were going to imprison them, and
he got away from him, huh?
Yeah. A tough time, huh?
What was that? We were north of there. I mean, Saarbrücken. We're up in just the southern part of Luxembourg, I think. Bastogne was back in here. We all pulled back, but we didn't pull back with. After we got across the Rhine, started down into the forest south, and down south. They tried to surrender to us, and we'd throw rocks at them and keep them, because we didn't want to fool with them. Trying to surrender. Back before, there was always a standing order. We'd go out on recon patrol, and they'd say, bring back a prisoner. Like you were going to go out and capture a prisoner, with just 2 or 3 men. Reconnaissance patrol, go out.
You have to find one guy all by himself,
Yeah, asleep. Yeah.
Yeah, he's not going to raise an alarm, yeah.
Good joke. Officers were sick, nuts.
Not much change there.
As long as they didn't have it to do, it was all right. We need a better map.
Mm-hmm. That can be arranged easy enough. So I picked that one up just to see, how much I just picked that one up to see how much you'd remember and how much you'd be willing to talk about it.
I mean, I don't know.
I don't know how you feel about all that.
Well, that's far enough away from it.
Yeah. Be over the worst, maybe. Can't imagine.
You never get entirely over it.
No, you're never going to. That was really and truly a highlight of a life, as far as participating in something of any consequence.
Yep. Yep.
It was a time we had in my company, when we left the States to go overseas, we had, I believe there was 212 enlisted men in the company, plus the officers. We had four officers in the company, I believe. When I left the company, which was after the Battle of the Bulge, just before I left the company, there were 17 of the original people left in it. None of the officers.
What happened to the officers?
Well, some of them transferred out, but most of them, there's a great number of them killed or wounded.
Yeah.
We had my platoon. We started out with a lieutenant by the name of Gustafson. He transferred over to G Company as a company commander, captain. Then he made major, battalion commander. And in France, he decided to take a 81 millimeter mortar up into an observation post to try to knock out some observation posts of Germans, and they killed him. I mean, it was foolish to try to do it to begin with, but he tried it. That was one. Then, in Africa, we got a Jewish fellow. Let's see. Bull Keegan. Bull Keegan. He was supposed to a big bull, you know. He was rough and ready. We're going up where they separate the men from the boys, and he was the first one to get out. They transferred him out. We got a Jewish lieutenant that this was back in Africa before the invasion of Sicily. There was no fighting. In other words, he transferred in from the States. He was new, fresh, green. So he was going to be tough. And there was a fellow that he picked on quite a bit. And so in the invasion of Sicily, late in the evening, he's coming around the corner, and the first round in every clip on our M1, which is 8, for night fighting, we put a tracer so we'd know where a round was going, and then you'd fire your 8 rounds. Well, the first one being tracer, so you could observe it. So it was a Spanish fellow.
He get picked on.
Yeah. As this lieutenant come around the corner, he saw him, Valdez saw him, and he fired at him. Well, of course, that tracer. And he'd come around the edge of the wall, around the building, and that tracer hit right in front of him. Didn't miss him, more than a couple inches. Then the fire out of it dropped down on his foot. Well, he was going to have him court-martialed, but of course everybody around him heard him challenge him,
And
and he didn't respond.
Yeah.
So this happened just at dark, and by midnight he was transferred out of the outfit. That's what happened to one. Then we got one that was made company commander. Then we got one that was killed on the Angel Beachhead. Then we got one that brought up a 90-day wonder, fresh from the States, right out of OCS. And we're on the Angel Beachhead. And he comes up in his pinks, his dress uniform. And wanna know where the company CP was? Well, it was dug into the side of a ditch. So back, a ways back of the line, but it was the line main defensive position. We were then with the British 56th Division. And he got inside the company CP, which is all sandbagged up, and like I say, it was dug into the side of a ditch, and it was pretty reasonably safe. It was not observed unless you were over it, right at it. So that night they took him up to his foxhole to show him, put him in with his platoon, and nobody saw him for about a week. He's afraid to get out of his hole, afraid to move, That was the last one. From then on, they started battlefield promotion because they're just losing too many. Oh, we had one 19-year-old, we called him Commando Kelly, Commando Kelly. His name was Kelly. He opened his flap and he slung his 45 down on his hip and he had it laced down. He was the one we took the maps and compasses away from on the breakout at Salerno, because he got us behind the German lines. We were back there to create havoc, and we took him down and took the map compass away from him, worked our way back into our lines.
Because you're there by mistake, you mean?
Oh, he didn't know where the hell we were. He had no idea what was. But this. But he was transferred after this escapade into another battalion. He was clear out of our battalion. Later, something happened. I don't know what. I heard he was busted to private and shipped to the Pacific.
That must not have been a good thing.
Well, he was just a kid. He didn't have any business.
Yeah. Well, probably where he needed to start out was as a private, anyway.
Where?
You want some banana strawberry briars?
Sure.
Banana strawberry.
This was, I've told the story so many times.
See, I've heard the stories in bits and pieces, and I think we all have, but I don't think any of us ever knew the where's and
I was talking about Commando Kelly.
Yeah. Getting behind the
Getting
lost.
It was on this escapade. And we were behind lines. We laid in a field in a little apple orchard all day. And it was late in the evening. I got up on one knee to look around, see what was going on, what we were going to do. And the first the platoon sergeant. I was not a platoon sergeant at that time. I was a squad sergeant. And the guy sees the silhouette of my head, and he lunged at me. And as he did, with his stretch knife, because we were trying to be quiet, we couldn't make any noise. And as he did, I stood up. And as I stood up, he caught me in the ass rather than up in the vital organ. And I couldn't yell. Because, again, you're back here and you don't want them to know you're there.
Yeah.
So this was a part of
Commando Kelly.
Commando Kelly's operation.
Downfall, yeah.
You fix your
So
own.
we walked all night to get back in our lines, and then in the process of walking back, we walked down a road and Germans were dug in on the back side of the road. And of course, they could see the silhouette of us coming from their line, see?
They-
They figured they'd see the silhouette, but our helmets and theirs was so near like the silhouette, we walked right on through and out, gone.
You've missed your chance. You've missed your
Well, how did you know they were there?
You could see them,
Oh.
you know, and they were talking.
Yeah.
No way to say anything.
And so you guys just decided to go ahead and,
We walked right on through,
yeah?
just like we own the place. Then, well, like I say, after we got back in, Kelly was transferred.
Right.
And this was, like I say, the Salerno
Yeah.
escapade.
Well, the other, any other, did you have any other wounds or anything other than, dropping stuff on your toes and,
No, I,
Got shrapnel in your,
on the Angio Beach head, I stood talking to these two guys, and they'd take a leak. So I walked around behind a little knoll to take a leak. And the Angio Express was
you can leave it
I
there
had
if
a
you want.
picture of it.
I may want some more, just leave it.
The Angio Express
was it what?
was a 14-inch railroad rifle the Germans had, and they'd pull it back in a cave in a tunnel, railroad tunnel. They'd pull it out and fire it and run it back in, so the aircraft couldn't spot it and destroy it and this kind of stuff. And they sunk some ships with it out in the harbor on Angio. And this thing came in. It had, I think it had right about a ton explosion, and one came in and killed those two guys I was talking to, and knocked me down. Addled, you're addled. You know, you don't know what the hell's going on, but for a while you think the world's gonna come apart and settle down.
Well, is that where you got shrapnel?
That was back where his hand grenade
That was back
from his launcher. And somebody fired, they were practicing
Oh my God.
in North Africa.
Never, that shrapnel's still there.
Had you not been shot at one time or another? What was that? No,
I didn't get shot.
didn't do that.
I had holes shot in my clothes.
That may have been what I'd heard.
You had what in your clothes? What kind of shot?
Holes.
Oh,
Holes shot in my
that's kind of
clothes.
close, isn't it?
I had the back of my neck, shirt shot out. Where your shirt collar stands up. Laying down. Or
Whoever was protecting you sure had one hell of a time.
Yeah.
I had holes in my crease on my right trouser leg. I had two holes in the crease in the front and the back, and didn't hit me. The skinny legs help sometimes.
In baggy pants.
I used to have a swastika. Where did you get that?
We'll pick that up in Italy. That was at Velletri.
Must have left in a hurry.
We did.
Yeah.
What happened to that swastika?
We took it apart and we used the red material for something. I don't remember what.
You had a German uniform and gave to Susie. She was just a little kid.
I sent that home to her. She wore it for a snowsuit. They're beautiful clothes.
Yeah.
The wool, heavy wool uniform.
How'd you come across that?
Where the guy took it off, trying to get away.
No. Would you believe that's yoga?
Pretty good.
I doubt that there was more than 3 or 4 in the company at the end of the war. Now, I don't know how many was there at the end of the war because I wasn't there, but I expected that it wasn't more than about 3 or 4 that made the whole thing with the same outfit, the
Yeah.
same company.
I mean, that tells you something. What,
We were either in combat or in a combat zone or in a rear area getting ready to make an invasion, the whole thing, all the time. Never completely out of it. If we were out of it, we were getting ready to get in it.
yeah,
You want some more? Before I put it
No,
up?
no, it's fine.
Some more before I put it up?
We,
Oh,
It either was going on or the cloud of it hung over you.
that's a long time.
were told back in the beginning of it that we'd make an invasion and a campaign and be brought back to the States to act as cadre to train troops. And then we got through with the Tunisian campaign. Eisenhower says there's no way that we can replace seasoned troops with green troops. So there you went.
They should have known that before they even made such a statement.
If they thought about it, they would have.
They did like a bunch of politicians too.
Well, Eisenhower became president.
I know.
There was a little politician in him all along.
Well,
And yet, you got to stop and think about the truth of it. The truth of it was that
they couldn't.
that's right.
They couldn't have done it.
The earlier, you know, the invasion of North Africa.
We were all
was-
green.
Yeah, but it was not the same. I wouldn't think the same
Well, we
level as going into Italy or.
Well, I tell you what going into Africa did. We hit the Atlantic, the coast of the Atlantic in Morocco. And we were fortunate because we really didn't run into the elite German troops. We ran into a bunch of French, and we ran into a spattering of Germans in the French. And so we got a little bit of experience before we really got into it. But the Desert Corps, Rommel's group, they were the cream of the crop. They were the best Germany had. That was the best soldiers that there was at that time. Now the British were good because they'd
They've been in
been
it for a
fighting
while,
them,
yeah.
been fighting them for quite a while, and they were beating them back in Egypt and across Libya. But the reason they were was because Rommel didn't have the materials to fight with. In other words, he was running low on gas, he was running low on armor, his Air Force was being depleted, and by the time we got into it, we didn't have air superiority at all at the beginning of the thing. But then it wasn't long before we did have air superiority. But I tell you, to fight a war without air superiority,
Yeah.
it's hopeless.
Well,
You can't do it.
I think today even more so. I think as we saw.
Oh, the more and more you
and,
see of it, it's much worse.
Persian
But
Gulf.
the most disheartening and the most horrifying experience you can have is to be strafed by aircraft.
Yeah.
Because they're in and gone, and hell, there ain't nothing you can do to defend yourself.
Right.
The only time that you might catch one is really when he's going away from you, because you got no warning, because they see you and they swoop off around, get behind something, and then they come in low and they're gone. And in the meantime, they got all these guns firing and just mowing down a bunch of people. And it's quite an experience. That's strafing a bit. I was strafed a couple times, several times. And it's an experience that you sure don't want. You don't want any part of it. Now, bombing is another thing, but bombing is not like strafing. Strafing is very demoralizing. Bombing, you can see it coming, you can get into some kind of cover, you may get hit, but if you do, you don't really know a lot about it. But if it misses you, why, you missed.
Yeah.
This strafing was just, I don't know, to me it was probably the worst experience is strafing.
Yeah. Yeah, you may get wounded and lay around, take a week to die, you know? Yeah.
Well, it just was a matter that they come down through and they just took out a whole, like I said, a bunch of
Yeah.
people.
Not only that, but they also, it's controlled. It's not like dropping bombs where at the distance that they drop them,
At that
they
time,
don't have
they
that
didn't
much
have it.
intensity, you know?
At the time that we're talking about, there was not that much, there was not the accuracy of bombing.
Yeah.
And they dropped anti-personnel bombs from up above. And it was about butterfly bombs, they called them. And what they did was about a little bigger than a regular hand grenade. And it probably had a pound of explosive in it. And it was round like a ball, and it opened halfway up like a butterfly. And we call them butterflies. And they just spin around and around in the air, and when they hit, they detonated. And they dropped them in clusters. There might be 300 or 400 of them. But what they did with those things was at night, they'd come over and they'd pick an area and they'd just drop them. And I'd venture to say that of 1,000 of them dropped, that'd be 100,000 bombs. Maybe 5 of them would be in an area where there was anybody.
Yeah.
But, it was just a hit and miss operation. They did a lot of that night stuff because we had air superiority, and of course everybody run blackout.
Yeah.
And they couldn't see who was around, floating around. So they just pick an area and drop a bomb.
Didn't have all those nice little heat sensing things they got now, and they
No,
can't hide from the damn things.
not anymore. That's those things are bad news.
Yeah. You see some of those laser guided things go in the front door of those bunkers, you know, you gotta know those fellas in there sleeping and they just don't even wake up.
No,
They don't even blink their eyes when that happens.
you can put them down the air shaft
Yeah.
and everything.
Yeah.
And what they have is a plane sitting up here way above with that laser target, and the guy that's dropping the bomb is down below him, and he's in and gone before the bomb ever detonates.
Yeah.
And this old boy's sitting up here with his laser on there. Laser guided. Hey.
Well, I was listening to